I don't like standing up there. I want to come down when you are. We've been very blessed this past week. The entire church has been very blessed this past week. We had 2 new babies. And as Curtis told you, they were born on the same day, and they were born right across the hall from each other. And I'm sure that those parents are just overjoyed right now. They're probably a little tired, but overjoyed right now. The Bible tells us that when somebody has an honor bestowed upon them, when somebody has joy, when somebody has a gift given to them, when they feel good, when they really feel good, that the whole church should feel good. We should all feel good. We should all feel really good about that. And when anybody has a problem, when anybody is a little bit down, that we should all do that. We should all experience things together. So when I started taking a look at this week, I had 2 or 3 things that I thought I might talk to you about and teach this morning. But I just came back to all the time to that Christmas story. And I don't know how to put together a sermon where you reach a little piece out of this book and a little piece out of that book and research things that way. I know how to do research. I've been asked to do that in my life many times. But I kept coming back to, God made me was a teacher, not a preacher. So therefore, I'm just going to teach. So I'm going to use I like to use just that one book, the book of Luke. So if you turn to, there's a Bible in your pew, you have it on your phone, wherever you might have a Bible. Go ahead, please, and turn to Luke. We're going to be looking at the 2nd chapter of Luke. I will use a little bit out of the 1st chapter, but that's just to enhance some of what we're looking at. Now, the book of Luke, it's always nice to know who the teacher is. Where's the authority come from? Where is this guy? And how do we know that when we read something or when we research something, how do we know that it's the truth? Well, Luke, let me give you just a little bit of background on him. First of all, Luke is not a Hebrew name. When the Rays and the Gerberries were starting, we learned that they were going to have children. I'm sure they started thinking about, well, what are we going to name this child? What are we going to name him? Names are important. And when God gives someone a name, it's extremely important. Because you're going to keep that name for eternity. But Luke is not a Hebrew name. Luke is a Greek name. It's actually Lucius. So therefore, how in the world did Luke, a Greek, end up writing one of the books of the Bible? I thought those were all supposed to be Hebrews. But in this case, it's not. And where does he get his authority from? Well, how does he know that what he's writing down is the truth? Well, first of all, he traveled with Paul. Paul was an apostle. Paul had a face-to-face meeting with Jesus Christ. Paul knew all the apostles. And Luke traveled with them. Now, how that came about and what exactly Luke was with Paul, that can be debated, but there is no debate that Paul and Luke traveled together for a period of time. So, Paul knowing all the apostles meant that probably Luke knew all the apostles. Therefore, a lot of the information that we find in Luke came from a direct source, the people who were there. This is first-person information that we're getting in Luke. And some of it is extremely personal. We know that he got it from the person that was there, and we're going to look at one of those in a little bit right here. We know that he got it directly from the source because of what he says and what he wrote down. So he traveled with Paul. He's going to tell us that he talked to all the people that he needed to talk to so that all the information is authoritative. I'm going to turn to Luke chapter 1. You can stay in Luke chapter 2. I'll read this. Whoops. I'll read this to you. Stay up. It goes like this. This is how we know. Luke chapter 1, beginning in the first verse. I've undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. Therefore, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, it seems good also to me to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught. He tells us right up front, all of these things that he's going to write down in the book and send to Theophilus, all of those things came from first-person accounts. People who were there. Pretty good account. Matter of fact, if somebody goes on trial, they're going to put people in a stand. They're going to ask them questions, first-person accounts. And they're going to take that as exactly what happens. So that's the authority that we have. Everybody that Luke talked to is that's going to be the authority. They were there. So now let's go and take a look at the Christmas story as he gives it to us. That's in the second chapter, beginning in verse number 1. I'm going to read the first 4 verses to you. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went to his own town to register. Just a very brief account. And what Luke is trying to do here is to give us, everyone he would have been writing to at the time, give them an idea so that they can give us a pretty darn close, almost an exact date for when Jesus Christ was born. And he gives us the Jews, a specific time period in chapter 1, because he says that when these things took place were in the time of Herod the Great. Well, the Jews would have understood that. They knew exactly when Herod the Great ruled. So the Jews automatically would have put this into a general time period. It would have been during that time period. But as he went into chapter 2, he wanted to narrow things down some more. So this was during the time of Caesar Augustus. Now, Caesar Augustus was born Octavius in the year 63 BC. So now Luke is trying to take this not just from the Jewish standpoint, but he's now trying to even narrow it down more. He tells them this was during the time of Caesar Augustus. He was born in 63 AD, and he died in, 63 BC. He died in 14 AD. He became the precepts, the ruler of precepts. They had a republic, a supposed republic in Rome at that time. They had a senate that met, and this was the leader of the senate. This was the person that they elected. He actually came to the throne, and he got this not because he cared anything about the Senate, but because he became he was the nephew of Julius Caesar. And we all know Julius Caesar, right? Cleopatra and all that stuff. Well, Julius Caesar was the first emperor. Yes, they had a Senate at the time. There was a big war. Julius Caesar won the war. He too didn't care about the Senate at all. He ruled with absolute authority. He adopted his nephew, who became Caesar Augustus, in 31 BC. So in 31 BC, Augustus Caesar became the ruler of Rome. But we've narrowed it down now to 63 BC, now to 31 BC. Herod got his power from Caesar Augustus. Caesar Augustus came and conquered all of the area of Judea and gave all of that to Herod. Herod became the ruler only because Caesar Augustus said he could be the ruler. So the Jews automatically have an idea of when this was. And then he puts in this other person, Quirinius. Quirinius, who was the governor of Syria. Syria is a land that is just a little bit north and just east of Judea at this time this all took place. Quirinius gives us a little problem as far as the timeline is concerned and narrowing things down, because for years and years and years we knew that Quirinius ruled Syria from 6 AD until about 14 AD. Now, that doesn't match the time period that Jesus was supposed to be born with, and when we list all the other things, because we can only find a census being taken twice, once in 4 AD and once in 6 AD. And Quirinius didn't take power until 6 AD. We thought, uh-oh, problem. And then just a few years ago, probably not more than 10, 12 years ago, they found other records that said, wait a minute, Quirinius was the governor of Syria twice. And the first one ended in 4 AD. And sure enough, when a ruler takes power, they take a census. When a ruler leaves power, they take a census, trying to make sure everything's staying status quo. See, people who are rulers don't like things to change. They like things to be taken care of. So what Augustus Caesar did, the one thing that he did that people really did praise him for, he made travel safe. The Pax Romana was the clearing of the waterways of pirates, clearing of the overland routes of thieves. He did that. Now, to do that, you got to kill a lot of people. He was a tyrant. Augustus Caesar, Herod the Great, they were people in the same vein of Hitler, Mussolini. Life was cheap, and they took a lot of life. So this narrows it down. Jesus was born in about 4 AD. So as we move along in the story, we're going to take a look at verses number 4 through 8. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and the line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. In 4 verses, Luke gives us the whole account of the birth of Jesus Christ. Now, you go to other Gospels, it's more drawn out. But Luke, being a scholar, he's going to research things, he's going to put it in chronological order, and he's going to put it as brief as possible. I like people who are brief. I like that. And he does that in 4 verses. So he tells us a great deal in those 4 verses. First of all, he tells us the reason that Mary and Joseph ended up in Bethlehem. Now, it's important that Jesus be born in Bethlehem because that's what was prophesied. That the Savior, that the Messiah would be born in the city of David, Bethlehem. Bethlehem's just a little town. It's just south of Jerusalem. Now, the trip would take a little while. It's going to take probably 5, 6, maybe a week to do, because Galilee is north of Judea. It's a territory that now is part of Israel, but it's in the very northern tip of Israel. It is in the area they called at the time Galilee, and nothing good ever came out of Galilee, especially out of the city of Nazareth. So Joseph Mary travels out of the city of Nazareth, about 100 miles south, passing right through Jerusalem to the city of Bethlehem, because they needed to register, that the census was being taken so that taxes could be drawn. That would take about a week. But as they got to Jerusalem, and we're not sure, I mean, there's no real timeline given to us at any account that I know of how long this took to get there or how long they were there before Mary gives birth. Now, it says that Mary was with child. It also tells us that they were engaged. Because of the customs of the time, the engagement period was a year. And during that time, they had to make sure, both of the male and the female, both the husband and the wife, that this was kept clean. Everything there was no real marriage contact. So that for her to become pregnant, for Mary to become pregnant, that would have been a scandal. But that's what happened. And as they get into Jerusalem, when they're in Bethlehem, she gives birth. This is a little bit, I have a real admiration for Joseph. How many of you want to deliver your first child? Am I the only one? He had to deliver the child. And now, see, when we had our children, it was different than it is now. Now that the husband can stay and go right through the birthing process with the expectant mother and so forth. They can do all that. See, with us, it was they let you go right up until that time and they're saying, "Oh, the baby's going to get out." It's just send the father out. And how close it was. I remember with our first child, it was. They sent me out. I went down to the waiting room, which is not more than here to the back of the church, and got the TV guide out, found a show, went to turn on the TV, and the doctor was there. Said, "Hey, you have a son." So they took you right up to that point, but then they kicked you out. Now they can do their birthing process. So some of you guys have seen this now. You really want to do that? I don't want to do that. I would have passed out, first of all. So, no, I don't want to do that. So I have a real admiration for Joseph. He delivered the baby. And we always get this thing, and Steve did a good job. If you're downstairs for the Sunday school hour, there's always this thing about there was no room for them in the inn. And really what it was is there probably was no room at all in Jerusalem, in Bethlehem, for any of them. There were probably no inn. So the innkeeper probably gets a really bad rap here because he's the one that sent Mary and Joseph to the barn. Send them down there. Well, it could have been anyone. But the innkeeper always said, I've heard whole sermons about that poor innkeeper. You know, and what a rat that guy was. Because he sent him out, he wouldn't give him room. Well, there was no room. It could have been anybody. But somebody had the good sense to say, hey, but there is at least a warm, dry place that you can go to. You can just go down here to this barn, and you can stay there. Now, I have to understand, then she takes it, he has a baby, she wraps him up in clothes, in these cloths, and she puts him in a manger. And again, we think, well, why in the world would you put her in a dirty old manger? Why would you put the baby in a manger? I was born and raised on a farm. The cleanest place in the barn was the manger. Why? It's where the animals eat. You're not going to let that, you can't afford to let that be anything but clean. So we would clean the manger every day. Every single day it got clean. And it was the nicest place in the barn. I mean, there were lots of jobs in the barn I didn't like to do. I did not mind putting the hay in the manger. I didn't mind that because it was the cleanest place. So all of this takes place. You get to Bethlehem, baby's born. Joseph has to deliver the baby, and they wrap him up in cloths, and they put him in a manger. But more things are about to happen. Starting in verse number, where am I here? 8. And there were shepherds living out in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And the angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. And the angel said to them, do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. Angels appear lots of times in the Bible. Almost always it's a single angel. And in this case, it's the same thing. Now remember, with Mary, was there a whole host of angels when the angel talked to her and told her that she was going to have a child, or was there one? There was one. So usually it's one. When Joseph was born, was told that Mary had a child, but it was the child of God Most High, how many angels spoke to him? One. It's usually one. Almost always one. It is not the kind of angel. Nancy and I have a nice little, cute little angel we put on our tree. And it's got those wings and everything. That's not it. There is no reason to be scared of an angel that looks like our little angel on top of our tree. I mean, if it was, I wouldn't touch it. No way. These are men. And they're scary. I mean, they're warriors. They are warriors, and they are fierce. Every time we see an angel that talks to a human, the first thing they have to say is, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Why would they have to say, don't be afraid? They're just a cute little angel. The glory of the Lord shone all around them. So in other words, the whole place lit up. The whole place lit up. So here's this angel. And you got to think about this. You are just a shepherd. And shepherds, by the way, were the lowliest of the low. They could not even, they were so low they couldn't even testify in court. The only other group that could not testify in court were women. Sorry, I didn't make the rules at that time. Those two groups couldn't even testify in court. They weren't trusted. It does bring up the question then, well, then why did God tell the shepherds first? And that's a different sermon. Basically, it has to do with what he said. I bring you the tidings of great joy, which will be to all people. All people. It's not just to the elite. It's just not to the rulers. It's not who the Jews even thought that the Messiah would come and take care of and to help rule. It wasn't to them. It was for everybody. You and me. So when the angel came to the shepherds, the lowliest of the low, and he told them that this message is for everybody. This is going to be my wife's favorite part. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. Verse 11. Today in the town of David, the Savior has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord. And this will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths, and lying in a manger. They had to be able to find him. The angel wanted them to go find him. Wanted the shepherds to go find Jesus Christ. They gave him all the information that he needed. He is born in the city of David. Well, they're right outside the city of David. They're at Bethlehem. They're right out in the hills, right around Bethlehem. And the angel gave them two signs that they could look for. And so they could find the exact person. Number one is not such a great sign. He's wrapped in cloths. And the word that Luke uses, swarthe, it is a Greek word. It is also only a word that a doctor would use, a physician. So again, we know that Luke is an educated person. He is a doctor. And so he uses a doctor's term, swathing cloths. Now, what that means is swathing cloths were cloths that they put around the limbs of the babies so that they will help them stay straight and grow right. It was important, of course, that in that time that people were able to grow properly so that they could do the work of a person who would have to walk rather than ride a car. Would have to be able to pull a cart rather than have a truck pull your cart. They had to be strong and their limbs had to be good. So they wrapped them in these swathing cloths. And that's what Luke put in there. That's how they would find it. Well, that's not a great thing, and probably every baby in Bethlehem could have been wrapped up that way. So that's not a great thing. But he also said, and you'll find him lying in a manger. Well, there are not going to be too many babies wrapped in swathing cloths lying in a manger in Bethlehem. So to put all those things together, all they had to do was go into Bethlehem, look around. First of all, they started looking in the barns. Is there a baby in a manger, in a barn, wrapped in swathing cloths? There's a baby. There you go. Didn't like the idea of the swathing cloths. Didn't like that. So they had all that they needed. But then, back to the book. This is my wife's favorite part right here. And suddenly, the whole sky lit up. The whole sky lit up. You know what? That's the same thing that happens every time somebody's baptized. We don't get to see it. The shepherds got to see it. The whole sky lit up. Thousands of angels. Thousands of them. You know, we have the great songs. Matter of fact, we sang one this morning in the first service. Angels we have heard on high. We sang, oh, it lit up. We don't know if they sang it. They might have yelled it. They might have yelled these very words right here. Glory to God in the highest. On earth, peace to them on whom his favor rests. I don't care if they sang it or they yelled it or what they did. The whole place lit up. There's thousands of angels. And this roar comes out of heaven. The first part you would expect. Glory to God in the highest. What else do angels say? It's all over the Bible. Glory to God. Glory to God. Second part. Peace to all of us. All of us. The person who is being born tonight is going to close the gap that was created by sin and become back together. Peace is now going to reign between us and God. All that night. That one little child. And now they knew where to find him. The one that they'd all been looking for, praying for. Silence from God for 400 years. There was no prophet. 400 years. And all of a sudden, these men get to know about it. And so they go, and they find exactly what the angel said. They found the baby, wrapped in these swathing cloths, lying in a manger. and they worshiped. They bowed down and they worshiped the newborn Christ. They never thought about the other end of that story, the life of Christ. They didn't think about that end. But that end is just as important, more important than the beginning. Because in a few months we're going to be celebrating Easter, the day that Jesus rose from the dead and finished and closed that gap forever. But they knew what came. The Messiah came. That when they worshiped, and then at the end it says they got up and they went and they told everybody they knew. Everybody they could find. Everybody. They told them about Jesus Christ. And when Jesus was resurrected and then he ascended, what's the last thing he asked us to do? Go into all the world and preach the gospel. The shepherds didn't know the gospel. All they knew was a little baby in a crib, in a manger. We have the gospel. Luke was one of the people who wrote it down for us so that we do know the gospel. They went and told everybody just about that baby being born and who he was, the Messiah. This is what we saw. We saw those angels. And they scared us to death. But they brought peace. They said, this is peace. They've closed the gap. And now we're telling you, brothers and sisters, that's what we're supposed to do. We know the gospel. You all know the gospel. Jesus is the Christ, Son of the living God. He is Lord. He's Savior. He's for everybody. He's for everybody. So if we don't tell them, how are they going to know? How are they going to know? That's what the Christmas message really is all about. If you don't know Jesus Christ, if you haven't given your life to Jesus Christ, then now's your opportunity. And the same thing that happened that night is going to happen in heaven. If you take those steps and you give your life to Jesus Christ, and you are baptized. Wash away all your sins and receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, there's no doubt in the Bible given about what that is. That is the Spirit of God to live in you forever. So if you haven't taken those steps, now's your opportunity.